Good evening. It's 7 o'clock and the Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners Town Hall meeting for June the 3rd, 2024 is now in session. I'll now call the roll. Commissioner Rutledge?
Here.
Commissioner Chismar?
Here.
Commissioner Taylor?
Here.
Commissioner Chance?
Here.
All right. Please join me in rising for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for being here this evening. Before we begin our agenda for this evening, I'm going to grant the privilege to all members who wish to comment or discuss the incident at the Harford Mall that happened yesterday. I know that tonight we're going to honor the legacy of Senior Officer Zachary Miller, who devoted his entire career, 43 years, to the Bel Air Police Department. He was the training coordinator, the range master, and the quartermaster. It was his job to see that any officer was equipped and trained to handle whatever might come their way. The performance of the Bel Air Police Department yesterday at the shooting incident at the Harford Mall honored his memory in a way that only his colleagues at the Bel Air Police Department could. The first officer was on the scene in a minute, a phenomenal response time. That officer, Sergeant Sergio D'Alto, rendered aid to the shooting victim and I am convinced saved his life. Jordan Green was on the scene very quickly as well. Carla Melchior, working alone in the dispatch center, handled everything until she could put out the call for more help. And she did, and it was answered. Everyone came, the police department, dispatchers, other agencies. 2 arrests have already been made, and a third suspect was quickly identified and is being sought. I'm convinced that he will be taken into custody in short order, and I want to thank the members of the Bel Air Police Department for all of their hard work and their professionalism. Any other comments from the commissioners?
Madam Chair, your description is very telling, very direct, and very true, and words cannot express the appreciation that we have for the men and the women who responded and put their lives on the line every day to protect us here in this town, in this county, in this community. Thank you for your comments.
Our community is one of the safest in the state because of the incredible men and women in the Bel Air Police Department and all of our law enforcement partners in Harford County. And we are eternally grateful for everything that you do in keeping our community safe. There will never be enough words to say thank you, but thank you, Chief, and to all of the folks who serve with you, under you, and for you. It's an incredible organization that you have, and I am proud to be a commissioner of a town with a force as fine as ours.
Thank you, Commissioners. I appreciate your comments, and I'm certain that my men and women of the police department do also. Thank you very much.
Sometimes I think we take for granted what we have here, but we are so blessed, and yesterday is one of those examples that makes us stop and think how blessed we are, and so thank you again.
Thank you, ma'am.
And Chief, you and your staff have done an excellent job in protecting the citizens here in the town, and you do an excellent job of coordinating with the other agencies. You know, incidents like these cannot be done by one agency at a time. You guys work very closely with the Sheriff's Department, with Maryland State Police. You know, I even saw that there were Aberdeen policemen here also. So that's a testament to the coordination, the behind-the-scenes job that you do, and all the coordination that's necessary to not just protect us. And I know it goes back the other way, too. If they need our help, we're there. So
Yes,
we each have each other's backs. And the way that you guys do that is just phenomenal.
Yes,
We really appreciate that. And it all keeps us all safe.
You bring up a very good point. We couldn't have done it without our allied agency partners, Aberdeen, Havre de Grace, Harford County Sheriff's Office, Maryland State Police. We've even had the alcohol, tobacco, firearms was there very quickly. We have the U.S. Marshal's Office out now helping us search for this individual. But we couldn't have done it without them, and I'm very proud of all of them, and they make me shine. So, yes, thank you.
Great. You should be proud of them. Yep. We should all be.
All right, thank you. Next on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the agenda for this evening's meeting.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion of this evening's agenda? All right, Mr. Krantz?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the approval of this evening's agenda. June 3rd, 7 p.m., 2024. Commissioner Rutledge,
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
Commissioner Chance,
Aye.
and Chair Edding.
Aye.
Tonight's agenda is approved.
Thank you, Mr. Krantz. Next, we have approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair, you do, as soon as I get it here. I recommend that the minutes of the Board of Commissioners meeting held on May 14th, 2024, and May 20th, 2024 be approved as submitted, including the minutes of the following meetings: May 14th, 2024 Commissioners' Budget Work Session Meeting, and May 20th, 2024 Commissioners' Town Hall Meeting.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion of the minutes? All right. In that case, Mr. Krantz?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the vote to approve the minutes for Bel Air Board Town Commissioner meetings May 14th and May 20th, 2024. Commissioner Rutledge,
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
Commissioner Chance,
Aye.
and Chair Edding.
Aye.
The minutes are approved.
Thank you. Next, under presentations, we have Miss Bel Air 2024, who I see seated here in the first row, Jonna Romero, and we have our parade marshal, Mr. Mike Blum.
Good evening, everyone. It is my pleasure and my privilege and my honor to be the chairman of the Miss Bel Air Selection Committee, as well as the head of the parade in Bel Air. And before I introduce our Miss Bel Air, I just want to add my absolute approval and thing to Chief Moore, appreciation and deepest honor to serve with Chief Moore. We could not do the parade that we have done in Bel Air for generations without the Bel Air Town Police and the affiliated agencies that Chief Moore is in charge of getting for us. And Mr. Klein as well, of course. Where would we be without the Department of Public Works? We would be lost. And also, yes, and Lisa and everybody else there. Okay, back to the plot. Hi. It's my great pleasure this evening to introduce Jonna Romero, a John Carroll School graduate and currently a student at Stevenson University in Owings Mills, as our Miss Bel Air of 2024. Jonna is an instructor and a birthday party lead with Harvard Gymnastics. She's a substitute dance and baton twirling instructor. How about that? At the Twirl-Tastics Releve in Bel Air. Her volunteer experience, and let me tell you, we have had fantastic Miss Bel Airs. Jonna is the 14th Miss Bel Air. That is an amazing, just sounds like yesterday. She's one of the best, one of the greatest. Her volunteer experience is a summer reading assistant at the library, Dean's List, university scholar, dance assistant at John Carroll Ballet, choreographer of Upper Falls Dance Academy. She's certified by USA Gymnastics. She's safe sport trained by the U.S. Center for Safe Sport, and she's certified in concussion training by the CDC Heads Up program. And if you're following the Orioles, you know the concussion training is a very important thing. Gianna will speak to you tonight about what we're doing here in Bel Air, in the town of Bel Air, the greatest town in the world, on Thursday, July 4th. But she will also speak to you about her platform, which is, what is it? Oh, here it is. Mental health wellness in athletics, a very, very important platform. With no further ado, it's my great pleasure to introduce to you Miss Jonna Romero.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here, and thank you to all the commissioners for letting me speak here tonight. So, as Mike said, I am Gianna Romero. I am the current Miss Bel Air 2024. I was very grateful and honored to be crowned by the past Miss Bel Air, Giovanna Ward, who I actually knew because I was a John Carroll grad. Graduated in 23, very proud patriot. To just start things off, I would just like to say that I am so blessed and feel so honored to be able to live in Bel Air. I actually live very close. I'm in Joppatown, but my grandparents live here, so it's my home away from home. It's where I basically grew up. I went to St. Margaret's right across the street. And I went to John Carroll, as I stated earlier, so it's just a place that I really love. And of course, one of the things that I love so much about it is the 4th of July celebrations. I've been going there my entire life. I am a 4th of July fanatic. It is the best. If you want the best in 4th of July, you come to Bel Air. The parade, all of the fireworks, it's just really amazing. I have plenty of pictures to show for all of my experiences, and just having my grandparents live here was really amazing, just being able to celebrate with my family. To just kind of start off, I want to really honor the 4th of July by talking about the different events that go on there. So at 6:45, bright and early, we raise the flag, which is so incredibly important that we're really honoring and celebrating our truly amazing country. So that's just something that's really fun and amazing to do, and I definitely recommend getting up bright and early. I know it can be hard, especially college kid, 8 a.m.'s definitely hard, but it is 100% worth it. And then you move on to the pancake breakfast at Bel Air High School. Who doesn't love pancakes? It's really amazing. And then you have games in Shamrock Park, family activities, and then arguably one of the best parts, the parade, which I have never been in, but I've loved watching the twirlers and getting to twirl eventually. That would be really amazing. So, and you'll see me this year waving. I will make sure to wave to every single one of you if anyone is attending. I promise I'll be smiling super big. And then absolutely the most amazing part is the fireworks. They are so beautiful and gorgeous, and I love being able to watch it with my family. It's really nice, especially when the weather is super warm and hot, and you can go and really cool down in the shade and just watch a beautiful fireworks show. So I highly recommend checking out the 4th of July this year. If you've never been, it is truly an amazing experience, and I recommend it so incredibly highly. So to just move on, I wanted to tell you a little bit about my platform. So as a delegate in the Miss America organization, you have a platform that you are able to create meaningful change with. It's usually something that is important and meaningful to you. So mine is called Fit Mind, Fit Athlete, and it's all about creating positive experiences and environments in athletics and really prioritizing mental health for all different types of athletes. So this is something that is extremely personal to me because I've been an athlete my entire life. I competed in competitive gymnastics at Hartford, which is located in Joppatown, and I really loved it, but I was a baton twirler and dance foremost. That is what I have been continuing to do, and I really loved my experiences. However, there was a time where I had an experience that was not so positive. There were a few coaches that I had that would single you out and would maybe yell at you a little bit more, and it kind of created an experience that was not so positive for me. However, I really think with my experience, it's really important that I'm kind of sharing what had happened to me and really promoting positive mental health and wellness in different athletic sports so that nobody has to go through what I did and everyone can have a positive connotation with sports growing up. So something that I think is so important that I was able to do was at Stevenson University with the 2 other twirlers, I had a twirler for a day. So that is where you bring different twirlers along and they can come twirl with you, at different basketball games or football games. It is something that is highly important because it creates such a positive environment for those athletes and it encourages them to continue sports in the long run, which is so incredibly important. Especially here in Bel Air, we're a very sports-oriented place. I know especially where I graduated, John Carroll, over 80% of the school participates in athletics, which is absolutely amazing and incredible. So it is highly important that we are keeping kids involved in sports and making sure that it is positive and fun for all. So that's a little bit about my platform, and it is something that I really want to continue after Miss Bel Air and something that I think is really important that we're taking into account when we're working with sports. So that is just a little bit about my platform and who I am and what I prioritize. So thank you so much for having me tonight. I really appreciate it, and I really hope the rest of the board meeting is great. So thank you. I'll hop in.
Chuck, why don't you join it? That'd be nice. Okay.
right, at this time, we're going to present the certificates of recognition for assistance from the allied agencies who assisted with Zachary Miller's funeral services. So if Mr. Frank Crick, Mr. Jim Plummer, and Mr. Michael Dunn would please step forward. Gentlemen, line up right here. Okay, is this one on? Great. All right. We're going to begin with Planer Frank Crick. He began his career at the Bel Air Police Department as a dedicated and passionate dispatcher and retired in like fashion as a sergeant. He was also a longtime volunteer at the Whiteford Fire Company. After retiring from the Bel Air Police Department after 30 years of service, he started work at the Department of Emergency Services. Mr. Crick was also a longtime friend and co-worker of Senior Officer Zach Miller, whose death greatly impacted him. Within hours of Senior Officer Miller's passing, Mr. Crick responded to the Bel Air Police Department to offer condolences, provide peer support, and begin overseeing the complex planning process associated with Zach's funeral and visitation services. The Incident Action Plan created and designed by Mr. Crick was a critical tool that leadership relied upon for all of the planning and execution facets of the service activities. This included aiding in the logistics, overhead map design, and traffic and parking plans. He was able to obtain manpower, the fire police, assistance, and offer help with radio and battery support. Despite experiencing his own grief, Planer Frank Crick exhibited tenacity and resolve by staying focused on his area of expertise, being pivotal in the planning process and developing the Incident Action Plan. Mr. Crick also assisted with peer support for other co-workers, friends, and family of Senior Officer Zach Miller. His knowledge, expertise, and generosity were incredibly useful during such a trying time. We want to thank Frank Crick once again for all of his help. Thank you so much. Gotcha. Next, we would like to thank Deputy James Plummer, who provided 32 years of service to the Harford County Sheriff's Office, retiring at the rank of lieutenant. He returned to the Sheriff's Office in 2019 as a deputy. Just as Mr. Dunn did, Deputy Plummer has significant experience and specialized skill in honor guard procedure and protocols. He utilized this immense skill and expertise to bring cohesion and strength to the precise and wonderful performance honor guard activities at this solemn event. Deputy Plummer, despite also navigating tremendous grief at the loss of his friend, never wavered in providing extraordinary direction and advice to ensure that an amazing tribute was accomplished for his friend and fellow officer. Also, based on the close friendship with Senior Officer Zach Miller, Deputy Plummer was extremely helpful in helping fellow officers navigate the grief process. The Bel Air Police Department could not have accomplished this enormous logistical effort without his assistance. During the ceremony, he remained front and center during all honor guard and other ceremonial activities. This event was emotionally difficult for our personnel, and our personnel were positively impacted by Deputy Plummer's kind and generous presence and advice. Senior Officer Miller would certainly be proud of the dignified send-off planned and executed from his dedicated friend, Deputy James Plummer. Mr. Michael Dunn assisted the Bel Air Police Department from the very start on his own time with the funeral services of Senior Officer Zachary Miller. Mike Dunn is a decorated retired police officer from the Baltimore Police Department and the Maryland Transportation Authority Police, actively serving in law enforcement for over 49 years. Mr. Dunn was also a member of both the Baltimore Police and the Maryland Transportation Authority Honor Guards. With that experience comes unmatched expertise and honor guard skill in ceremonial protocol and procedure, dealing with tragic and sad deaths of heroes like Senior Officer Zach Miller. Mr. Dunn's expertise ranges from being the absolute master at organizing uniformed honor guard activities, such as organizing honor guard movement, logistics, and planning, to providing much-needed peer support for families and co-workers of fallen public servants. Likewise, his experience, direction, and oversight brought precision and grace to honor guard activities for the service and funeral of our Senior Officer Zach Miller. Without question, Mr. Dunn's extraordinary love for law enforcement and public service is unmatched. Time and time again, Mr. Dunn has exhibited tireless and selfless assistance to agencies like ours across the country to ensure that fallen public servants, including soldiers, receive the dignified farewell that they deserve. His unwavering sacrifice and dedication always brings some positivity to tragedies. The Bel Air Police Department is immensely thankful for the support and guidance provided by Mr. Michael Dunn. Thank you so much, gentlemen, all three of you.
I'm going to go off one certificate because they're kind of similar in fashion, and we have a little something for you. We wish we could do more. Okay, so it's inside here. So these are what the certificates kind of say here. Let me see. The Bel Air Police Department would like to recognize the extraordinary assistance that was provided by all of you during the visitation and funeral services of Senior Officer Zachary Robinson Miller. The complexities associated with this infrequent and tragic event such as this are difficult for smaller agencies like ours to be fully prepared to handle. Fortunately, upon hearing of Zach's death, you all offered your time and your sacrifice, expert instruction and guidance related to fallen officer funeral procedures, protocol, and helped us complete the incident action plans. You were all instrumental in assisting with and authorizing the incident action plans and everything else and the guiding documents for this event. We would like to officially honor and thank all of you for your exceptional service rendered to our fallen officer. So thank you very much. So this is yours, Frank. Yes, sir. Got it. Thank you, ma'am. Deputy Plummer. Michael, I was always at the funerals and watched your performances, and this is, I'm very honored to be able to finally meet you personally. So, very impressive. Yes, sir. And by the way, ceremoniously, I get it, Zach is here with us today, okay? Thank you, gentlemen.
At this time, we have Resolution 1230-24, honoring the deceased Senior Officer Zach R. Miller by proclaiming the Bel Air Police Department Drive as Zach Miller Way. Would you pass that over, Mr. Krantz? Thank you. And if you would do the honors.
Madam Chair, I move that resolution number 1230-24, honoring deceased Senior Officer Zach R. Miller by proclaiming the Bel Air Police Department Drive as Zach Miller Way, be approved by the Board of Town Commissioners.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Chance. Any discussion of the resolution? And shall we read this? Resolution 1230-24, a resolution honoring deceased Senior Officer Zach R. Miller by proclaiming the Bel Air Police Department Drive as Zach Miller Way. Whereas Senior Police Officer Zach R. Miller, a dedicated public servant and esteemed member of the Bel Air community, was born on September the 7th, 1956 in Baltimore, Maryland, and departed this life on February the 28th, 2024, at the age of 67 at Upper Chesapeake Medical Center in Bel Air, Maryland. And whereas Zach's commitment to his hometown of Bel Air was unwavering, having graduated from Bel Air High School and subsequently dedicated 43 years of his life in service to the Bel Air Police Department, where he ascended through the ranks, leaving an indelible mark as training coordinator, range master of all firearms, and quartermaster. And whereas Zach's contributions extended beyond law enforcement, as he was an active and esteemed member of various community organizations, including the local Moose and Elks Lodges, the Boomy Shriner, and the Masons Lodge, Mount Ararat, number 44 in Bel Air, as well as the American Legion, the Isaac Walton League, and the Delta Peach Bottom Fish and Game Association. And whereas Zach's diverse passions and interests enriched his life and those around him, from his deep knowledge and appreciation of German World War II history to his enjoyment of collecting coins, autographs, and TV memorabilia, as well as his expertise in Luger firearms and his love for the game of golf. And whereas Zach's memory lives on through his devoted sister, Mary Bradley, and her husband Robert, his beloved niece Jeannie Marks and her husband Garrett, and great-nephews Ryan Marks and Eric Marks, as well as his cherished significant other, Joan Peplinski, her son Jason and his wife Emily, Ray, and grandchildren Jackson and Ellie, and extended family members. And whereas Zach's legacy of service, friendship, and passion will forever resonate within the Bel Air Police Department and the law enforcement community. And now therefore be it proclaimed by the Mayor and Board of Commissioners of the Town of Bel Air, Maryland, that we hereby honor the memory of Senior Police Officer Zach R. Miller for his exemplary dedication to duty, his unwavering commitment to community, and his profound impact on all who had the privilege of knowing him. And furthermore, in recognition of his outstanding contributions, the Bel Air Police Department Drive shall henceforth be known as Zach Miller Way, with a street sign erected in his honor to commemorate his legacy and lasting impact on the department and the community. And be it further resolved by the Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners that this resolution shall take effect on June the 3rd, 2024. Any further discussion amongst the board?
Ma'am, if I may, can I
Yes.
have the two officers come up and,
Absolutely.
so, Officer Nick Rhodes, Corporal Smithson, can you come up and, please? Thanks for letting us out. We love you. So now we're gonna have a little ceremony on the other side in the community room.
Chief, we didn't. Mr. Krantz, if you could call the vote on the resolution.
Sorry, man.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is for the vote on Resolution 1230-24, a resolution honoring deceased Senior Officer Zachary Miller by proclaiming the Bel Air Police Department Drive as Zach Miller Way. Commissioner Rutledge,
I wholeheartedly.
Commissioner Chismar,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Very proudly, aye.
Commissioner Chance,
Aye.
Chair Edding.
With gratitude, aye.
The resolution is passed.
Thank you. Mr. Krantz, I believe we also have a proclamation, correct? We also have a proclamation, Zach Miller Way, whereas Senior Police Officer Zach R. Miller, a dedicated public servant and esteemed member of the Bel Air community, was born on September 7, 1956 in Baltimore, Maryland, and departed this life on February the 28th, 2024 at the age of 67 at Upper Chesapeake Medical Center in Bel Air. And whereas Zach's commitment to his hometown of Bel Air was unwavering, having graduated from Bel Air High School and subsequently dedicated 43 years of his life in service to the Bel Air Police Department, where he ascended through the ranks, leaving an indelible mark as training coordinator, range master of all firearms, and quartermaster. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Mayor and Board of Commissioners at the Town of Bel Air, Maryland, that we hereby honor the memory of Senior Police Officer Zachary Miller for his exemplary dedication to duty, his unwavering commitment to community, and his profound impact on all who had the privilege of knowing him. And furthermore, in recognition of his outstanding contributions, the Bel Air Police Department Drive shall henceforth be known as Zach Miller Way, with a street sign erected in his honor to commemorate his legacy and lasting impact on the department and the community.
Okay, Mary, wanna come up? Yeah. Okay, that's fine. So Zach was our cheerleader, okay? He was always there for us. Whenever we had a bad day, he was always positive. He was witty. It's incredibly difficult for all of us that he's not there for us when we need him. When I was having a bad day, I would go over and talk to Zach. He would make me feel better. And that when he extended that service or that behavior to everybody. And I can't thank the family enough for having him work here with us for so long. People would say, you know, it was time for Zach to retire. Now, we were part of his family. And I don't really, I sat and thought sometimes, I'm like, how does this humble man, how is he able to give so much love to everybody and, you know, still do what he did? I mean, he was the training guy. He took care of the certifications, and he did it precisely. The man was top notch. He was quality. Sometimes we make fun of, you know, we'd say, hey, you know, Zach talks so much. But when you really think about it, the reason he did that was because he was precise. Did you notice that when he spoke or he gave you, he talked about a certain topic, everything was exact on it. And sometimes I'm like, how is he able to do that? How is he able to be so precise? That wing on the other side of this building was designed completely by Zach Miller, and we have him to thank for that. The mayor brought up the incident that happened yesterday at the mall. The training that he, again, being precise, the training that he ensured that we had got us through things like that, and it's going to help us for a long time. His legacy will be here for a long time for us. He's just so easy to talk about, and I miss him every day. And these fellows back here that we honor today, you know, we owe so much to them because we're grieving. I mean, I was hurting. I think my guys recognize that. At one point, you know, I was so off just from losing that man. I pulled out of here one day to go down to the viewing service. I had my cell phones on the top of my car, you know, just because I was off, you know, and we couldn't have done it without the help of Deputy Plummer, Mr. Dunn, Mr. Frank Crick, and I want to thank Rick Ayers for lending us Frank. And Mike, you just made your own sacrifice, but hey, you know, you're out there for all the guys because you didn't know Zach that well, but you have a love for the service, and that showed in what you offered us that day. And Jim, to your leaders for lending you to us, you helped us get through it. But you did it because you love Zach. You knew what kind of guy he was, what kind of quality he was, and I can't thank the family enough for what you've done. And things like this and the sign will help us all of us get through the grieving process. So again, thank you very much for lending him to us. He was unique. There will never be another Zach Miller. And we're going to suffer in the long run. We'll find a replacement, but they'll never be him. And thank you again, okay? Yeah. This is hard to do. So there's a little ceremony on the other side. We have a cake and stuff, so please go over and indulge, eat some of that cake so don't eat it later, okay, and take it with you. Trying to lose weight, so thanks again.
Next on our agenda will be the proclamation for Narva, Estonia, Bel Air's sister city, the Narva Days celebration. Was established in the spring of 2014 with representatives of Bel Air and Harford County institutions traveling to Estonia, as well as representatives of Narva visiting Bel Air. And while as Bel Air and Narva have maintained their relationship despite disruptions from the global COVID-19 pandemic, and whereas we look forward to planned travel and cultural exchanges in the coming months and years, and whereas we thank the Estonian Embassy in Washington, D.C. for reaching out to form a sister city relationship, and we thank the Maryland-Estonia Exchange Council for bringing our communities together. Now, therefore, the Board of Town Commissioners of Bel Air hereby proclaim June the 3rd, 2024 as Narva Days to celebrate what has been a wonderful decade of being sister cities and maintaining our friendship going forward.
I would just like to say this is a celebration, 10 years, and it was 10 years of passion, hard work, dedication, enthusiasm, great ideas, and it all started with a committee that changed over time, but it also with the help of various town administrators, starting with Chris Schalier, Jesse Bain, Eddie Hopkins, mayors that gave us tremendous support. Rob Rear signed the original partnership agreement, and then Susan Burdette was outstanding, and now we're lucky to have you, Mayor Edding. And the people in the background, I'm looking right across at Angela, who is doing lots of work with some economic development as we prepare for some business linkages and prepare packets for me to take over. I'm looking at Michael Krantz, who is the guy behind the scenes on the website and making everything work. There are so many people, and including the community, like when we took the nurses over, that was a community effort. This is 10 years of celebration for us as well, not just NARA. So I thank you personally. Been there since the beginning, and I'm still here to talk about it. So thank you.
Good luck with your trip. I can't wait to hear about it.
Okay.
when you get back.
Good job, good job. Thank you.
We need to.
This is your calisthenics.
Everybody's getting their steps in today.
I just showered, so somebody.
Oh, you got two coming on this side.
Oh, okay,
We're
all
coming.
right, that works. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for your support. And your continuing support.
And now we are going to have the public hearing on ordinance 826-24, amending Article 7 of the Development Regulations in Chapter 165 of the Bel Air Town Code, fee in lieu of open space. Is there any member of the public here this evening who wishes to address the board on this matter?
Good evening, Wayne Goddard, 128 North Bond Street. As I previously stated, when the bill was originally, or the resolution was originally introduced, I think that it was a very well-written piece of legislation. I think that it serves to address the situation that is of importance, and that it provides for an objective way for a owner of property or prospective purchaser of property to evaluate whether or not a contemplated development of the piece of property is feasible. However, this afternoon I did think of one consideration that I'm not sure if was thought about during the drafting of the legislation. I'm not sure if the legislation would, like, what would the impact be? Well, let me back up. So, as most of you probably know, the tower, Main Street Tower, is for sale. It's a multiple-story building that covers 100% of the land on which it's located. So the concern that I considered, and I don't know whether or not this would be impacted, would be, let's say hypothetically that use were to be changed to a mixed use, perhaps residential on the top to eliminate the open air music venue. Would then you have to demolish some of the building in order to achieve an open space, or would there be some carve out for a building that exists that encompasses the entire square footage of the lot? I don't know the answer to that, but that was just the only consideration that I would suggest would be that one, and I don't know if it could be done with an amendment to give consideration to buildings that cover 100% of the lot size and the footprint of that building is not going to be changed, because it could potentially be negatively impactful for the goal of adaptive reuse of some of the older buildings in the town that are built to 100% of the lot line with no setbacks. That's the only, it's not really a criticism, just a point of consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goddard. Is there any other member of the public here this evening who would like to comment on this piece of legislation? In that case, we will close the public hearing at 7:46 and move on to our unfinished business. Do I have a motion for ordinance 826-24, amending Article 7 of the Development Regulations in Chapter 165 of the Bel Air Town Code, fee in lieu of open space?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move that ordinance number 826-24, revising Town Code, Chapter 165, Article 7, related to open space fee in lieu, be approved by the Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Do I have a second?
Yes. I second.
All right.
Wasn't reading my notes.
So, any discussion on this piece of legislation in light of our public comment?
Yes, Madam Chair. I just want to once again thank and commend everyone who had a hand in this legislation. It's been a 6 or 7 month process through which we have, deliberated on this, reasoned on this, thought on this, considered multiple different perspectives, and the product that we have here before us, I think, is reasonable and I think is positive change, and a testament really to when you sit down and cooler heads prevail and think about good policy, what can be accomplished in really a short time frame to move the town forward, both in protecting investments in our town, but also in protecting the environment of our town and making sure people want to come here to spend their money. That being said, in response to some of the public comment that we heard, I think that that's a reasonable thought. I think that that is something that should probably be addressed in a different piece of legislation, because that actually has to do with the way that the open space requirement itself is structured, as opposed to the fee in lieu structure. So, Mr. Small, if you wanted to speak maybe on the requirement itself to shed light on that.
Well, if it's referring to the tower, that's a B2 zoned property, which allows for fee in lieu, 100%,
100%.
if desired. So,
Correct. So so what you're saying is if they turned it into a mixed use, then however much acreage the residential required, they would be able to buy out of that with the fee in lieu.
correct.
Without, at 110%.
Right.
of
And it would
the-
be 15% of that property size, which is not cumbersome
Right.
for any developer.
Type. So it would be allowed.
Yes,
It wouldn't hinder. It would just be a,
right. If approved by the planning commission, which I couldn't imagine it would.
Right, certainly the idea of having an existing property would imagine be quite persuasive to the planning commission in that
Right.
setting. And of course, the Board of Town Commissioners set the B2 area at 110% with this legislation for the express purpose of situations such as these, where
Such
we
as that.
recognize the standard is very different in our downtown corridor than it is in other places in town.
Any further discussion amongst the board?
Madam Chair, if I could. Yeah, I support the legislation, fully intend to vote for the bill as it is, but I definitely am interested in the overall concept of examining the particular unique nature of, what we're dealing with on Main Street. Mr. Goddard's comments, I think, are very apt and thought-provoking. So, Commissioner Taylor, I also would, think that some scrutiny for a separate piece of legislation. I mean, just to understand a little more about it, whether or not there would be an exemption, perhaps even, to be able to, because there's other buildings along there on Main Street when I think of that, could, when and if the owners of those properties decide they want to actually put them on the market and, we've got a number of properties that are, in stasis, I'll just use that term, just sort of in limbo, while owners make decisions or just decide they're going to pass that to the next generation to make decisions. I think that that's an excellent point when you've already got the complete structure that is a complete zero lot line situation. That whether or not it's a booming, bar or some nice, loft apartment type thing, to me, I'm wondering how that really makes a difference from a public policy standpoint on whether we would require open space in those particular circumstances. Obviously, that would take a lot further study, but thank you for allowing me to make those comments this evening.
Mr. Rutledge, one thing I wanted to point out to the board that had been in our discussion sort of benignly in talking broadly about open space and the requirements, and again, this legislation, it focuses on fee in lieu. To your point, Commissioner Rutledge, one thing that the commissioners may want to consider is for these particular properties, so let's say the tower hypothetically goes to a mixed-use residential. Well, in the zero setback, you may want to provide a broader definition of what can be considered open space, such as gyms, rec rooms, open community center rooms within that scheme of development. Right now, the department does not consider that open space in the normal traditional sense. So you could broaden that definition in those areas where there is no land per se to put trees or park or that kind of thing. Just a suggestion.
Oh, thank you very much.
All right. Any further comments or discussion on this piece of legislation? Mr. Krantz, I think we're ready to vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is for the vote on Ordinance 826-24. Commissioner Rutledge,
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
Commissioner Chance,
Aye.
and Chair Edding.
Aye.
The ordinance is passed.
Thank you. Next, under new business, we have ordinance 827-24, amending the Bel Air Town Code, Chapter 10, Boards, Commissions, and Committees, Article 5, Committee on the Elderly and Needy Citizens, and Section 10-20, Membership, Terms of Office. Do I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. I make the motion that ordinance 827-24, amending Bel Air Town Code, Chapter 10, Boards and Commissions and Committees, Article 5, Committee on the Elderly and Needy Citizens, Section 10-20, Membership, Terms of Office, be received by the Board of Town Commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner Chance. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Mr. Krantz?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A little bit of background. The Town of Bel Air Committee on the Elderly and Needy Citizens have recommended to change the name of the committee to the Committee for Seniors and Citizens in Need. The Committee on Elderly and Needy Citizens have also recommended to amend the membership requirements to a maximum of 9 members. On previous discussions at work sessions, staff concurs with the name change and recommends that the membership requirements reflect a minimum of 5 members and a maximum of 9 members. And to go along with that, also to put into the resolution that a majority of the voting members shall constitute a quorum for the transaction of business. With that, town staff recommends that ordinance 827-24 be received by the Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners, and a public hearing will be scheduled for Monday, June 17th, 2024, here at Town Hall at 7 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Krantz. Is there any discussion amongst the commissioners?
Would it be possible for any members of the committee to speak at this time?
I was going to let the board discuss and then ask if there were any public comments.
No, I think I like the name better than the original one. And going from 5 to 9 is good. If there's that much involvement, community, with the citizens, let's do it. Let's get them involved if that makes them more involved.
All right. Anyone else? In that case, if there's any members of the public that wish to make a public comment, you can step up to the podium.
You are more than welcome to speak as chair.
Hi, good evening. I'm Barry Klein. I'm the chair of this newly appointed, Committee on for Seniors and Citizen Commitment. I'm not even used to the new term yet.
Seniors and Citizens in Need.
Seniors and Citizens in Need. We'll have to get used to that new title. Yes, thank you. So we just appreciate the fact that you're considering increasing the number of people. We do find that that is going to be more advantageous for exactly what Councilperson Chismar had said, that we do need to have more people engaged in this, and that we feel that having these increased numbers will bring more people to the table because it will give them the authority to be a voting member and a voice in that. I think that's more or less the area that we wanted to discuss. We really appreciate your input on that name change because it is something that we feel in the new era is going to be more searchable, and so that hopefully there'll be more engagement from the community at large. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Deborah?
Any other members of the public wish to make a comment at this time? No? All right, then. Any further discussion amongst the board? In that case, I think, Mr. Krantz, we're ready for a vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is for the vote to receive ordinance 827-24 for a public hearing scheduled for June 17th. Commissioner Rutledge,
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
Commissioner Chance,
Aye.
and Chair Edding.
Aye.
Ordinance 827-24 is received.
Next, we have Resolution 1231-24, Town of Bel Air fee schedule amendments. Do I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move that Resolution 1231-24, amending the town's fee schedule, be with the language that is highlighted on page 6 of the resolution to be omitted, and then be received by the Board of Town Commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner Rutledge. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Chance. All right, Mr. Krantz?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to take us through all of these changes here this evening, so please bear with me and feel free to ask any questions as we go along. The Town of Bel Air fee schedule, let's see, was last amended about this time last year. And this is the first time in a while that we've had so many amendments to the fee schedule. So just for thoroughness, we're going to go through them one at a time. Under general planning review fees, we have proposed amendments to change the traffic impact analysis, otherwise known as TIA, traffic impact analysis review, from 750 to 900, and from the revised TIA review from 250 to 500, and to include that the town will bill for all expenses over the review fee. Also, under general planning and review fees, we have the rezoning petition section with some language changes to piecemeal rezoning to be added for 0 to 4 acres, and to also add language piecemeal rezoning for 5 acres or more. We also have, under rezoning petitions, under development regulation amendment petition other than rezoning, it is currently at $500 with no recommended change, but to also add to include hearing and advertising costs. Continuing under the section of general planning review fees, under the permit section, under signs, temporary signs exceeding 6 square feet, signs under 25 square, temporary signs exceeding 6 square feet from $25 to proposed change increase to $35. Signs under 25 square feet from $35, proposing to change to $50, and all others currently at $75 with a proposed amount to $100. Also under the section of permits, temporary use permits such as Christmas tree sales, tents for special events, and modular classroom facilities. It's currently $25. The proposed amount is $35. Continuing on to the section under miscellaneous and other miscellaneous review fees, we have the addition of a memorial bench or amenity, which would be a fee of $200 plus the actual cost of the amenity. Under the section special events, we have a fair amount of change where all the old language under the special events section is being struck through and eliminated for the proposed addition, which I will read here. The utilization of town services. This is in the event that an entity sponsoring an event that requests the assistance of the Bel Air Police Department or the Public Works Department, their personnel or equipment, and dependent upon the police and public works availability, there would be costs as follows. The town has, just a little history there, the town has always provided about $300 per year of services at no additional cost. But the town has also been caught in many, many situations where the town has provided services in the form of police officers closing streets, providing security for events, public works, setting up, taking down, participating in the trash removal and recycling of and cleaning up following events without any costs whatsoever being charged to the event organizers. That has resulted in cost to the taxpayers that the town really must begin to recoup. As a result, we're going to continue to offer in section number 1 under utilization of town services, we propose to continue to offer that the town offers basic service at no cost if available up to a maximum of $300 per year, but we just can't let it go for other events. We have to continue, we have to look at recouping some of that cost for our officers and our public works personnel. So when a person requests to have an event on town property, private use of public space, if you will, there is an advance notice requirement. A proposed 45 days advance notice is required for special events, and a proposed 90 days advance notice is required for special events requesting street closures. A special event and a street closure application, they are required, they would be required, and they're available even today on the town's website. If police department services are requested and if they are available, the police may provide an officer or more than one officer to assist with security and or street closures at the applicable regular or overtime rates per hour per each respective police officer according to their fiscal year pay rate that have been assigned to the event. So for example, if you have 3 officers assigned to an event, some may be more senior than the other, they all would have different pay rates, and as a result, the event organizer would be required to reimburse the town of Bel Air and the Bel Air Police Department for those officers at their respective hourly pay rates for the amount of time they spent working that event, minus the $300 that we would give them. The police department, police auxiliary officers would be the one exception. They would be billed at $30 per hour per person, and the $300 per year discount would be excluded for auxiliary officers. It should be noted that all police officers employed by the town will perform his or her duties under the supervision and control of the police department. So if a request for police services, you're essentially inviting the police department into your event, and of course the police department would manage their own personnel and provide that event managing entity or organizer with advice and guidance. Similarly goes for Public Works. The Public Works Department, again, if available, would provide staff members to assist with installation of fencing, cleaning up debris, placement and pickup of municipal trash cans or related services at a rate that would be reflective of each individual's hourly rate for each person. Again, it could vary because there are new hires, there are people who've been in town 10, 15, 20 years, and depending upon who signs up for that overtime or signs up for that particular event, the entity would be billed for the hours that that person works on their event. That person also would be supervised by the Public Works Department, not by the event organizer, and that event organizer would be the beneficiary of their advice and guidance. It should also be said that the Public Works Department and the Bel Air Police Department is not obligated to provide officers or staff members in the event of an emergency or an unanticipated unavailability of personnel. If an emergency would happen, our commitment would be to the safety and security of our citizens first, not to helping run this event. So that should be noted, and any future event organizers must be aware of that. The entity sponsoring the event would agree to pay all charges associated with the utilization of the Public Works or Police Department services for the event within 30 days from the date of the town's invoice for those events. Said charges would also include reimbursement for supplies and equipment. And in the event the entity sponsoring the event fails to make payment, all open charges will accrue at an interest rate of 1.5% per month. Entities that sponsor events requesting police or public works services must also sign an agreement or a memorandum of understanding with the town of Bel Air. And it should be noted, and we'll note it in the fee schedule, that the separate fee schedule applies to events held at the Bel Air Armory. So I know that was a mouthful, and unless there's any questions, I'll go ahead on, move on to the other recommended changes. Under fines and penalties, there's a penalty for proceeding with work without a permit. It is currently at $50. The recommended rate is $100. Under documents and publications, Bel Air and Architectural and Cultural History from 1782 to 1945. That book cost $15. It is now recommended a proposed cost of $5. There's the addition of the Economic Development Market Study. That would be a $30 fee. And per your motion earlier, Commissioner Rutledge, the proposed language that you see on page 6 that we attempted to write in for Public Information Act, please exclude that from consideration at this time. We'll address that maybe later with another piece of legislation. Moving on to under building permits and other related fees, under commercial, industrial, institutional, you see a fee for review and inspection services, which is currently at a minimum of $85. Is proposed to move that to $125. And to keep that consistent with Group H, high hazard uses, also moving it from a minimum of $85 with a proposed increase to $125. Same with utilities, public or private, each structure, tower, transformer, and poles, adding the current fee of a $50 minimum plus a $125 administrative fee. There's also the addition of a new fee, a commercial tenant occupancy certificate, including name change, ownership change, or no structural changes, would be an $85 fee. Moving under the section of Group R for R1, R2, R3, and R4 residential buildings. 1 and 2 family dwellings, R3 and R4. The minimum $75 admin fee is being proposed to increase to $125. For under hotel buildings, R1, proposed increase from $85 to $125. And dormitory buildings and assisted living, also an increase from a minimum of $85 to $125. If you look under the section for additions and alterations, decks, porches, balconies, and a potential club basement is currently a minimum of $30. Recommendation is to change that to $100 and from a $25 admin fee to a $50 admin fee. Under occupant structures, room additions, residential and accessory buildings, a minimum of $65 with a proposed change to $100, and a $25 admin fee with a proposed change to the $50 admin fee. And sheds over 200 square feet, currently a $25 admin fee to a recommended $50 admin fee. Looking down under Public Works review fees, stormwater management and erosion sediment control fees, a small language change, the erosion sediment control, instead of the word agreement, change that to a standard plan for less than or equal to 30,000 square feet would be the recommended change there. And under sewer fees, the Harford County System Development Fee, which I should clarify is collected by the town of Bel Air on behalf of Harford County, is currently $10,338 and is now changing to $10,803, which will be effective July 1st, 2024. And those are the proposed changes included with this resolution 1231-24 for the fee schedule this evening.
Mr. Krantz, I'm going to confess that I don't understand page 7 of 9 at the bottom, under the group residential buildings, how this is calculated. I think I understand the 1 and 2 family dwellings, it's 6 cents a square foot, but a minimum of 125. But then hotel buildings say 9 cents a square foot, minimum of 150, plus 1 cent a square foot, minimum of $125. So how do you calculate that?
I would have to request some assistance from my fellow department heads to clarify that.
And the same for dorm buildings and assisted living. I just don't understand if I had a, building of how many square feet, how that's calculated. Because you have 2 minimums and 2 square foot calculations.
Madam Chair, I believe what that says is that 0.09% for under the minimum, and then the charge of the 125 for most over the minimum.
I read that for the hotel building, it would be
Mhm.
9 cents per square foot.
Correct.
And if you if you take the square footage of the hotel and it doesn't add up to 150, you pay 150. That's a minimum.
Okay.
If it goes over 150, you take 9 cents times the square footage and it's 200, then you're paying $200. That's how I read it. Is that a correct interpretation?
I believe so.
I guess the question is on the, when we say plus 1 cent per square foot, and then the minimum is 125, and I assume that UNO means use and occupancy.
Correct.
No.
What it means when we say, what it means when we say a minimum of $125 when we're talking about the plus 1 cent per square foot. That's where I'm getting confused, because I'm with you that, if it doesn't get to 150, it's a minimum of 150, and then
Right.
if it does get to over 150,
Right.
it's a cent extra per square foot. Where I'm getting lost is where that minimum of 125 comes into play.
No, okay. See, I wasn't taking that as a penny extra for every square foot. Those are
Okay.
2 different items.
So there are 3 of us sitting here who
Okay.
don't understand
Okay.
how
Yeah.
to do the calculation. One of us is an engineer,
Yeah.
so.
Well, and I'm saying, X, no. 9 cents per square foot for like the building permit. Minimum of $150. If your square footage goes over that $150, then you're gonna pay, like I said, 200. Now, that's done. Second fee. You gotta pay a penny per square foot for the UNO. Okay, and the minimum that you will pay for that is $125 unless you'll pay $125 for that unless your square footage goes over 125. So there's like 2 fees. I think the building permit and then the
I'm with
UNO.
UNO. And that makes
Okay.
some kind of sense, and if we can get confirmation on that, and maybe we might need to
Right.
change this language a bit to make
Is
it
that how-
clear to everyone.
Kevin?
Yeah,
Oh,
and I
okay.
apologize.
All
I was not in when they were doing this. Charlie Dawson.
Since it was building,
So
We-
I got
we were-
I got a brief rehab from Charlie on these number changes in a scribbled red pen. So
We will have a 4th person
Right.
added to the perplexed group, and,
Yep.
I can promise you, I can
We'll-
meet with
we'll-
Charlie
we'll
Dawson
figure this
tomorrow and
out.
clarify this
There
for
you go.
you all.
Yep.
and we might need to amend the legislation a bit later, before we final it, just to make it clear to the world.
I apologize, I can't clarify that. this evening.
That's
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
I feel better that I have company.
Yeah.
Now, you have that same situation up the very top of that page on the commercial, industrial, institutional, and also the high hazard use. You see where it says
Right.
9 cents, minimum 150, and then 1 cent for the UNO. Okay?
So
So-
it seems like the wisdom is that for every square foot that's being used for use and occupancy purposes, you're adding a cent onto that 9 cents, essentially. I mean, yes, it manifests itself in 2 fees, but that's the idea.
But 2 fees, but for
Right.
that, adding a penny, you're still gonna pay a minimum of 125.
Right.
Even though, well, you just add, if you make that 10 cents, that you may not get
So
your
I
125.
think if you look at the fee at the top of the page for commercial, industrial, and institutional, it actually defines the different increments, the
Right.
9 cents per square foot minimum paren for review, inspection, services, closed paren,
Right.
and then has the plus for the use and occupancy certificate. And it seems to me that spelling that out parenthetically was just then truncated to just a quick reference to U and O to say,
Yeah.
type,
For all the
typing
other
that in
cases.
again. But it would have been useful to have, at the end of the first fee, the paren, is that for the review inspection services? What, like it did at the very top of the page.
I think we're all in
that's
agreement
all-
that we're missing
and I-
a few words
Yeah,
and we need
I think the
to
guide to
clarify
go by
what
is
the
at the
two
top of the page.
things.
I think that one makes sense.
I think that one I
Some-
understood,
Okay,
I think.
yeah.
But-
I think that's what
all
we're
right.
missing here.
Right.
I think Chrissy Mulaney and Charlie Dawson have a great answer for this, and I will look at them tomorrow, and I will send out an email, and it should correct
You
the
got
whole
it.
conversation, so.
Okay.
All right, that sounds good to me.
All right.
All right.
So I had
Yeah,
several.
it makes sense to them, exactly.
Right. I had several questions on this, just for some for clarification. On page 3, the memorial bench and amenity, the $200, does that include would that be the fee for the installation of that amenity?
That's my interpretation, because it says then plus the cost of the amenity, so.
Right. Well,
That's the fee you pay to the town, and then.
Yes,
So if there was a
That one
bench.
is me.
If there was a bench, so that would be the cost of attaching it to.
right, you're paying for
And-
the
and
bench, and then the
administration.
$200 pays for the marker, the plaque that goes on it, and any future maintenance plus installation.
Okay, good with that. And then with many of the fees, go to the fines and penalties on page 4. Penalty for proceeding with work without a utility permit is $100. Would that be for each utility that you don't have a permit for? Because I understand you need there's gas, electric, water, sewer.
That's correct. A lot of times, sir, we have a sewer company come up to put in a new sewer line for somebody, and they did not come down and get a permit to do that work.
Right.
And that's where this person would get a fine of the $100.
But if they had one that they needed 3 permits and they didn't get all of them, is that $100 or $300?
If they didn't get it for all 3, it would be $300.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
an each, for each utility
per
permit.
utility, yep.
Okay. Just wanted to have clarification
And I
on
can
that.
tell you, it's usually the same groups of people who do it week
Right.
after week, so. They just
Okay.
don't learn.
And then, let's see what I have. That one was good. Back to Chair Edding, for about the 1 and 2 family dwelling where it says R3, R4. What about R1, R2? 'Cause since it's calling out R3, R4, is there a fee for R1, R2, or should we strike R3, R4 and just say residential? I'm sorry, page 7 page 7?
Bottom.
That last big box where it says Group R. And that first one, it says 1 and 2 family dwellings, R3 and R4, and it gives you what the 6 cents per square foot. But what about R1 and R2? Or even R0 for single family? Should we just scratch? Why would it be any different? Should we just get rid of R3 and R4? It's just, or in that paragraph?
I believe that's DPW.
I'm sorry, sir, I was trying to still figure out that one paragraph.
Oh, page 7,
Yeah,
and under Group R, that
Yep.
bottom thing where it says 1 and 2 family dwellings, and then paren, it says R3, R4.
right,
So you have a fee.
yep.
What about a fee for 1 or 2 family dwellings in R1 and R2?
I think they're addressed in the other multifamilies and the hotel buildings.
I think also this may be a classification of construction,
Yeah.
because there's no such thing as R4 in Bel Air, as far as zoning goes. So I don't think
Okay.
they're referring to zoning.
No? Okay.
That's my
Yeah, that's true. There
understanding,
is no
having
R4.
not written. I believe it's a classification of construction.
It'll be addressed when I get back to you tomorrow.
Okay. That is, and then I had, these fees for permits and all, they're pretty much mainly just a process. I mean, they're doing it the right way, going through permits. It's just, we don't want to overcharge or whatever type of thing, but they do have to pay what the review costs are and things like that. But it was like, I just thought it, decks and porches. We're saying it's a minimum $150 for a permit.
I might be able to actually
Just
speak
seemed a
to this a
little
little
large.
bit. I had a club basement permit through the town of Bel Air, building permit, I don't know, 20 years ago or something like that, and I'm pretty sure I paid $55. And for my $55, I got 3 inspections. I got somebody that inspected it when it was like studded out, somebody that inspected it after the insulation was in, and a third set of eyes came in and did like a final inspection. And I thought $55 was a bargain 20 years ago because it looked good to me, but I don't, know what I'm looking at. So I was happy to get a permit, go through the process. And my husband was like, "You mean it was only $55?" I was like, "Yeah." He said, "A bargain." So, I don't think $150. And this is that we pay the county.
Yeah, the county would receive the $100. We received the $50 for the
Yeah.
administration fee.
Okay. Well, I'm not saying it's a lot of money. I just thought it was a lot compared to,
$55.
no, compared to the house requirement, which was a minimum $125. That's all,
I'm not sure that,
for a house.
does that cover all the inspections for a house?
Well, I'm just saying for a deck versus a house. You're-
I understand what you're saying.
That's all, I'm
Yeah.
just looking at the comparative. I'm not
Yeah,
saying
I was just
that's
wondering.
not a
is-
bargain. I
is
just
that
thought that the comparative.
Is that the total cost for a house for inspections and everything?
Yeah, 0.05% minimum, up to 100, but if it's more than a minimum, it'll be more than that.
Right. But that doesn't include the utility inspection, like electric, plumbing.
It's
That
all
would be on
combined.
top, that's the building
Yes,
permit. Then there's
yes.
electrical and plumbing on top of
Which
that,
is
but,
basically,
yeah, that's a cost straight.
it's in the same
Yeah.
permit though.
I was just going from a relative perspective.
I hadn't
seeing-
thought of that. I see your point.
Yeah.
I see your
And,
point.
and you look below it, that a deck would be the same price as a room addition. $100 plus 50, 5 cents per square foot minimum. If that's the cost,
Although
you're
Club in a
saying the
basement is-
county is throwing the 100 on it, that's the minimum, it's a pass-through, and and the $50 is for our administrative, and I guess we do a UNO, that includes the UNO that we would give?
Yes, indeed. And the $100 is basically for all the inspection services
Right.
that they do. They come out
Pass
to
through
the
to the
site,
county.
do all that work.
Yeah.
Review the plans first. That's when we supply the building permit, and then once the structure is built, they do a series of inspections to make sure footers are correct and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And that's their fee. And then when the homeowner calls 3 or 4 times saying where my permit is, where you gotta call them back and say,
know.
county's still working
County's-
on it.
right.
That's the $50 administration fee.
Okay.
Also, you come to town to get your building permit, and you can ask some questions there at the counter, as I did, to get,
Right.
some information about what am I doing here. And they're always very helpful, and very nice, but I know
No, they
it goes
are.
over to the county, and then they do the rest of it. And to me, actually, a club in a basement is kind of like a room addition. You're really turning it into a room.
Right, but a lot.
You don't have
just-
footers,
yeah,
though.
You don't have the foundations
You
and
don't.
stuff like that. That's the only thing, like you have,
Mhm.
so. But I just, I'm just saying, if those are the costs that we have, I'm good with that.
Good.
If that's what it runs, like you said, the county's delegating, or defining what some of those are.
Right.
And then we just have that, we're just saying it's $50 to put through,
Yes.
and that's probably a reasonable cost.
Yeah.
So, okay.
More goes in it than, just signing a piece of paper.
Oh, I
can
know.
tell you that right now. Yeah, so it probably works out about even with
Right.
Chrissy Mulaney's salary and the time she puts into it and so
Okay.
forth. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
I had 2 questions. The first was on page 2. Specifically, if one of the department heads could explain for the board the reason for the increase in the signs and temporary use line items.
Sure. It typically takes for us to process a permit, including going out and if need be, inspecting to make sure they are put in the right place, about an hour. And that may be a half an hour at the beginning and another half hour. Laura, takes care of sign permits, she's billed out at $40 an hour without the benefits. So that's where we came up with that number.
Thank you. That makes sense. And then the second one, which I assume will be a similar answer, but I just wanted to have all my bases covered, because it was the other one that stuck out to me, is on page 7, the commercial tenant occupancy certificate, which I assume is Ms. Robertson.
That's me.
And, okay, Mr. Klein.
Yes. And you had a question on that?
Yes. So my question was where that number is coming from, why because I noticed that it's a new fee, why the inclusion of that particular fee?
Well, what of course this does, Commissioner, is when there's a new building that doesn't require any real work to be done in that building, it's basically just being used for the same purpose. It's just a new tenant, a new business owner. At that point in time, they're required to register that with the town of Bel Air, and that's the fee to make that change, $85.
So is that a calculation?
It's not new.
Okay. Just the way that it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the old was, but
Okay.
I don't believe it's new.
That helps.
I think
then.
it might have been $50.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I didn't see a strikeout here.
Yeah.
So that helps.
Yeah.
And so is that calculation similar, essentially the amount of man hours that it takes to process that change on your end?
Yes,
Okay.
and I could tell you the most of the time on these is actually trying to locate the new business owner and say, you have to come down here and get a new tenant.
Sure.
This is required by the town code.
Sure.
And oftentimes, I would say 7 out of 10 times, they don't come down. I work with Angela and say, they haven't come down, there's a new business up on the street. Angela says who it is. Angela works with Chrissy, and they say, you gotta go down and get a new occupancy,
Okay.
tenant occupancy.
Thank you.
Yep.
That was my main question, was because I didn't see a strikeout, so I thought it was new, but that is helpful.
And oftentimes, this happens very, very quickly on a Thursday or Friday, right before a ribbon cutting. Because we do not like to give these certificates out without being approved, so.
All right. Anything else from the board at this time? Okay. In that case, Mr. Krantz?
Okay,
Well,
thank
let
you,
me-
Madam Chair.
I would ask, I forgot to ask for any public comment, but there are no members of the public left
Okay,
unless Mr.
okay.
Anderson wishes to comment. I didn't think so. All right, Mr. Krantz.
Okay, so this would be for the vote to receive Resolution 1231-24, amendments to the Town of Bel Air's fee schedule, minus the language, the proposed language on page 6 that has to do with Public Information Act requests. And I'll revise this and get it up on the website as well, too. So Commissioner Rutledge, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar?
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor?
Aye.
Commissioner Chance?
Aye.
And Chair Edding.
Aye.
Resolution 1231-24 is received.
Thank you, Mr. Krantz. Next, we have Resolution 1232-24, Safe Streets and Roads for All. Do I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move that the Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners approve Resolution 1232-24, endorsing the goals and objectives of safe streets for all to reduce serious injury, crashes, and traffic fatalities by 2040 in the town of Bel Air.
I second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Rutledge. And this is Mr. Small.
Yes, Madam Chair. On September 15th, 2022, the town of Bel Air, along with Havre de Grace and Aberdeen, partnered to apply for a United States Department of Transportation, USDOT grant, to produce an action plan under the Safe Streets for All program. This program was developed using Vision Zero principles that include 8 priority study elements required by USDOT. After several months of coordination with USDOT, the firm EXP, I'm sorry I'm saying all these letters, but that's just the way it ended up. The firm EXP was selected for this project. The consultant researched selected intersections. Public input was solicited through social media and as a part of a workshop at Bel Air Armory. A draft of the report providing recommendations was reviewed by representatives from each municipality, and a final draft will be presented to the town of Bel Air during a work session, and that would be next Tuesday that you will see that. The foundation of Safe Streets for All effort can be found in the Safe Systems Approach criteria under the US DOT and with the Complete Streets Leadership Academy coordinated by Maryland State Highway Administration. These standards ask that a goal be set by local government to coordinate traffic deaths and severe injuries. To eliminate traffic deaths and severe injuries. In this case, the goal set by the 3 municipalities is 2040. Staff recommends Board of Town Commissioners approve Resolution 1232-24, endorsing the goals and objectives of the Safe Streets for All program. I did reach out to the Aberdeen and Havre de Grace. They agreed on 2040. The report that you'll see next week has a goal of 2034, but that is in the environment, that's a 10-year goal in the environment of someone who's not experienced at going and getting grants and having to acquire money to do these projects. So we kind of pushed it out. We all agreed between Aberdeen and Havre de Grace that a more appropriate goal would be 2040.
Thank you, Mr. Small. Any questions or comments from the board?
So the 34 number in the report and the 40 number in our resolution is not going to give us any issues?
No.
Okay. With the grants and all right.
And I know Commissioner Chismar had said previously, 2040, let's do it like next week.
Yeah, right,
So
but-
we all want to see 0 injuries and 0 deaths, but we have to plan to make these changes and plan the finances to do it, so.
Correct.
Any other questions? And we have no members of the public here, so there is no public comment. Mr. Krantz?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is to vote for the Safe Streets for All. Commissioner Rutledge,
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
Commissioner Chance,
Aye.
and Chair Edding.
Aye.
It is passed.
Thank you, Mr. Krantz. Next, the sidewalk trip hazard removal contract. Do I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I move that the proposal, Precision Concrete Cutting, 215 Middleborough Road, Wilmington, Delaware, furnish all labor, materials, and equipment to remove sidewalk trip hazards in a number of locations in town for the amount of $41,500, be accepted by the Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner Chismar. Do I have a second?
I second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Rutledge. And this is Mr. Klein.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This project has been dear to my heart since we started the project back in about 8 years ago. The way that it came to my attention was from a commissioner attending the MML convention down in Ocean City. So I want you to keep your eyes and ears open down there, and you might bring another project that will really help the town of Bel Air moving forward in the future. As I said, it's a great program, and we've done really well with it. As concrete sidewalks age and are affected by external forces, panels often heave or settle, resulting in uneven joints that pose tripping hazards for pedestrians. To ensure the safety of all sidewalk users, it is essential to eliminate these trip hazards and provide a level walking surface. Our team believes that the proposed method is the most effective and cost-efficient way to address and eliminate these hazards. The town procurement regulations permit the purchase of supplies or services from a sole source when only one provider is practical due to their exclusive method or service. Precision Concrete is the sole source provider for this project, having secured several U.S. patents for their method and equipment used to eliminate trip hazards from concrete sidewalk panels. The funding required for this project was allocated in the FY 2024 streets budget. The Department of Public Works, in collaboration with Precision Concrete, has identified 732 sidewalk trip hazards in the Howard Park and Major's Choice communities that are ideal for this repair strategy. All repairs will be measured, inspected, and mapped using GIS integration, and they come with a 3-year guarantee from the initial repair date. And I don't know if anyone has noticed in some of these, we are finally starting to get some guarantee processes that are being done for us for no cost. They are standing to their contract agreement and are fixing panels that may be heaved a little bit, and they're going back and taking care of that at no charge to us. That made me very happy when I saw that come in their proposal. This is the 8th year, as I mentioned earlier. It's a multi-year program aimed at addressing sidewalk trip hazards throughout the town. And I think it's going to be a regular year process, in my opinion. There are some panels that they cannot repair due to the severity of the tripping hazard. So then our crews go and try to fix as many of those we can in a year by the old conventional method of ripping the entire panel out, framing up and repouring the concrete pad. Of course, this is a much more expensive endeavor than the actual cutting sidewalk. The staff recommends that the Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners approve the proposal from Precision Concrete Cutting. This proposal includes providing all labor, materials, and equipment necessary to remove sidewalk trip hazards at various locations throughout the town for a total cost of $41,500.
Mr. Klein, you mentioned that this particular company is the sole provider, and yet I noticed that the price really does seem quite reasonable. Would you agree with that assessment?
Absolutely, and just to push that a little bit further, Jake, we basically tell them, this is how much money we have. Let's do as many of these we can at your rate that you do these processes for. So each year we basically say we're going to budget $41,500 for this process, along with some other concrete work in that line item. And then they have a unit price that they charge for each type of repair. So we then do the math and we come up with a great project.
And to that end, we are, if you look at the specifics of this contract, we're getting quite a lot out of it. I think a lot of neighborhoods will be greatly improved by this. So I just want to commend you for implacably bringing us fiscally responsible contracts. I know the
Sure.
taxpayers appreciate it. You do great work on that regard, as do all our department heads.
And I can tell you from experience, my wife recently broke her leg, and she's in a wheelchair. And every day I drove over 2 sidewalk cuts, and it's a pretty smooth transition that wouldn't be there unless we did this project over on Maitland Street. So, just little 2 cents.
Just a question on the counts. I see it, you're doing the 2 neighborhoods, Howard Park and Major's Choice.
Yes.
So it looked like Howard Park had 269, and then Major's Choice, I'm just going with the end number, is 610.
Yeah.
And then it says total is 732.
Yes.
Oh, that doesn't work in my math book.
Yeah, well, I think what happens is.
I was just curious.
Yeah, I also question that tactic. I think sometimes they do more than one repair at one location.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And that's
that
how they counted
I
it.
agree with you, Steve. I did the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait a second here.
Wait, all
This
right.
says total repairs, and this says number 6, and I think that's what goes on there.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
Any further questions from the board? No? And there's no one here to be the public to comment, so we will proceed with the vote. Mr. Krantz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is for the vote to approve the sidewalk trip hazard removal contract. Commissioner Rutledge,
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
Commissioner Chance,
Aye.
and Chair Edding.
Aye.
The contract is approved.
Thank you. Next is the wayfinding signs contract. Do I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move that the proposals of Signs Etc. Incorporated for $32,795.95 to replace park identification signs and rehabilitate identification and directional signs in Bel Air be approved by the Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Do I have a second?
Yes, Madam Chair, I second.
Thank you. And Mr. Small, I believe this is
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's the desire of the town to provide coordinated wayfinding for both residents and visitors to Bel Air. The town's been following a comprehensive graphics plan over the last several years to utilize a coordinated and attractive wayfinding system by phasing in various signage improvements over several years. Signs, et cetera, has been part of this effort for the recent phases of implementation. These signs form a pattern language for wayfinding by establishing a color, style, and graphics distinctive to Bel Air and coordinating with the branding of the town. Bel Air has now entered into the fifth and last phase of the planned work, which includes gateway and park identification graphics. The improved signs will will add addresses to park properties that will aid in emergency response and visitor coordination. In addition, several signs which have been damaged recently require repair and installation. These include signs identifying DPW planning at Churchville Road, directional signs along Fulford Avenue, and the intersection of Baltimore Pike and Kenmore Avenue. Graphics are provided as exhibits for your review. So they're split into several different estimates or quotes. Park identification signs are $23,627.31. Replacement of the sign at Baltimore Pike and Kenmore Avenue is $1,713.83. The replacement of the sign at DPW and Planning is $3,166.23. Replacement of the sign along Fulford Avenue is $1,713.83. And park rules signs, which are provided and will be erected by Public Works personnel, $2,574.75. This contract will be funded through monies from the FY24 budget, set currently at $50,000. Also included are gateway signs and town hall identification signs, which will be provided under a separate contract and approved administratively. The replacement signs will likely require additional funds beyond the budgeted amount, and by saying that we never anticipated somebody hitting the sign at Fulford Avenue and somebody and the sign kind of failing at Kenmore, and then somebody also hitting the sign at DPW. I'm not sure how all of those things happened, but that's kind of the reason we're likely to go over the budget. Staff recommends the bid for wayfinding graphics from Signs, et cetera, in the amount of $32,795.95 be approved by the Board of Town Commissioners.
I do have a few questions, Mr. Small. One is, it says pick up the signs in North Carolina. How are they getting here?
They're driving them up.
They're driving them up?
Yeah.
Okay, because this says that somebody's going to
Oh.
pick them up.
We shipped the two signs that were hit down to North Carolina. They will then rehabilitate them. They'll add a pole because both the poles were damaged, and then they will bring them back up here and install.
The problem for me is that the estimate says somebody's going to pick them up in North Carolina, not that they're going to deliver them up here.
I can revise that. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't see.
Pick up at, all of them say that.
Kevin, you're not going to North Carolina.
No, I don't mind going to North Carolina.
I wouldn't mind going to North Carolina either, but I don't
Charlotte?
think I
Okay.
have anything large
there.
enough to bring back those signs, so I think
Yeah.
you just need to clarify that the price includes,
They're
Delivery.
going to deliver them. Yeah.
okay.
That's.
I don't have a problem with the
They've
price.
done this several times before, and I've never gone down there. Even though if I have to, you guys make me, I will go down there.
I would just clarify that with them, and I was curious, where is the Major's Choice Park sign going to go? It just says North Shamrock Road.
That was a difficult,
With no street address, which there isn't one there.
there's the two, normally what we've done, and this was through coordination with
One to your house.
the town administrators, to find the most appropriate address, cycle that through emergency services to make sure they're okay with it. And then Dave doesn't know this yet, but I'm going to approach him about getting this all put onto Google. So everybody can Google it and knows exactly where to go. But when I looked at Major's Choice, this house is on each side.
Mhm.
There's no there's no opportunity to create an address in between.
It would
So
have
the
to
two
be like
apart.
501
Right,
and
there,
a half
it's like
or something.
501, 503, and so, and I didn't want to do something down the, that was out of sequence. So I just said North Shamrock Road.
Oddly, I live next to 503 and I am 507. There was some kind of, no, I think they messed up and somehow that tree threw them off because it's not a lot, but it was, it was, I think, going to be a lot, and then the tree was saved and it's not a lot, and it messed up all. I get deliveries go next door all the time because they count, and I thought I was 505, but I'm 507. There is no 505, but it doesn't make any sense. I was just curious. You're going to put it somewhere like where that tree is, I guess? I don't.
Yeah.
Okay.
You solved the mystery, okay.
The other, I didn't check any of these other
We could have.
addresses, but Public Works says 705 East Church Hill Road.
Oh.
So that'll need to be corrected.
Yeah,
'Cause
thank
you're
you.
Church Bill, not Church Hill.
Oh.
Church Hill. That would be important.
On the actual sign.
On the actual sign, Planning and Public Works, 705 East Church Hill Road. Also, just
Okay.
as a side, Mr. Klein, one page of your contract says it's like 710 Churchville, not, and another page says it's 705, and I don't think there is a 710, but.
You gotta get these contractors on the ball.
I'm gonna, just might want to point that out, to your folks. It's, I'm sure they'll send it to the right address.
That was the sidewalk,
It was the one page of the sidewalk contract says 705. Something in there. The first thing where it says
Right.
the trip hazard, number 2 under there says 710 Churchville, and you're actually 705, although the proposal, I think, that went to Charlie Dawson says 705. So one place is 710, one place is 705. They need to correct their records. I don't know how that happened, but just so you get your mail.
Okay.
The more substantive issue, though, about the wayfaring sign, the park rules that are here, I looked at the code. Some of them are in there, but not all of them. Like that, we have no park rules saying children under 12 must be accompanied by an adult. And I personally, that gives me heartburn because I have an 11-year-old grandson who could go to the park by himself. And I suspect it's maybe targeted towards vandalism, and
I think one of the reasons, and this goes back several years, it might even, I'm not sure if Chief Moore was here. Most any kid can go out there and play, and I don't think anybody's going to bother them. But if somebody is creating a problem, and if somebody is bothering the other kids or creating some kind of disturbance, it does give our folks the ability to make them leave.
say go home.
Yeah.
I get that, but it's not a rule in our code. I don't think we should be posting park rules if we haven't adopted them as park rules.
I couldn't tell you when this was adopted, but after our conversation, I was doing some research on the internet. There is a page for Bel Air, Town of Bel Air, Parks and Rec, and on that homepage, there is a link that says park rules. And it says, now there's no reference, I'm going to caveat this, there's no reference to any ordinance or resolution that would indicate how it was passed. But it says park rules / regulations. Park is closed from dusk to dawn. Children under 12 must be accompanied by an adult. Please keep pets on a leash and pick up after the dog poop, quote unquote. No solicitors or peddlers except by permit. Smoking and alcohol is not permitted in the park. Nothing about controlled substances, which, I mean, that would be just kind of a given, I think. And then no girls or open flames. It's not signed, it's not anything.
Where is this?
If you Google Town of Bel Air Parks and Rec,
Of course, we don't really have a Parks and Rec department.
I know that that's what is coming
Is it
up.
like the Parks and Rec committee?
No, it comes up just as Parks and Rec.
I think one of the things that, if you want to take under consideration establishing rules for the parks, I'm not sure it has to be in the code. This is town property. Town property, the commissioners can decide what they want to be the rules for somebody utilizing their own property.
I did check the county, and they have their rules for their parks in their code. We have a number of rules in our code for parks.
Correct, and
But
it's
the-
very
the-
ambiguous, yeah,
the
it's kind of
children-
generic.
The children under 12 isn't in there.
No,
Pets on a leash and cleanup is probably covered elsewhere in the code.
probably the health, yeah.
Alcohol, controlled substances, probably covered elsewhere in, because you can't, like, I can't walk down my street with an open beer kind of thing. Open from dawn to dusk was in the code. I think no grills or open flames or something like that was in the code. Litter and receptacles is covered somewhere, like don't throw trash out of your car or on our parks. Smoking or vaping is prohibited. I cannot remember if that was in our code or not. I'm
That is not
100%
in our
sure that
code.
children under 12 must be accompanied by an adult is not in the code. And
Yeah, that's not in the code.
it is on our website, but we have not adopted it as a rule. So we would, my opinion is, and I looked at Liz for, advice on this, is that we'd have to adopt it as a rule if that's a rule we're going to enforce. I don't want to put anything on a sign that's not a rule that we haven't properly adopted and then we're not willing to enforce.
Well, I see that with, this is just what I found that was published. I'm happy to do some more research for it. Obviously, the Board of Town Commissioners has the complete right to adopt rules and regulations as to visitors and guests and residents utilizing its property within the town limits.
Absolutely.
So I would, at a minimum, I just don't know where this came from.
Me neither.
And I was the same way. I was like, I'm not seeing it in the code. I'm not seeing it in the code.
I also didn't see it in the county's code. Howard Grace, I think, didn't have anything, and I don't think I got around to checking Aberdeen to see, what, if anything, they had
In their code?
in their
or
code.
Okay, because did they have any kind of rules at all?
Not that I found, but it was, like 15 minutes worth of poking around on the internet. So there could be something.
Yeah.
But I personally am opposed to putting up as rules anything that isn't really a rule.
Mhm.
And there was an incident in the city where they had some regulations and the police were enforcing them, and there was trouble and civil suits.
Was that the no backpack thing at the polls?
No, I think it was something else that had to do with behavior and trespassing, I think. I'm vague on the details, but I remember that they stopped enforcing those regulations because they found out that they could not.
Okay.
The details escape me. And I personally would not be in favor of any rule about kids under 12 have to be accompanied by an adult. I'm more of a free-range kids. If you're 9 or 10 and you're at the park that's, up the street from me, to me, that's sort of a parental decision on, 11-year-old, 10-year-old. I mean, I don't think my parents saw me until dusk when the streetlights came on when I was a kid. I was riding my bike and hanging out in the park.
There's a lot of stuff with juvenile justice reform right now that we've got to really be careful of.
That is another issue.
Yeah, so.
And I know that certain malls have adopted, but they're mostly kids under 18, I think. They have to be a minor, not,
Accompanied by an adult,
yeah, but the 12 and unders, and that's private property as opposed to governmental, which has got a whole different set of rules going with it. So I'm fine with the money, but
These rules have been here as long as I've been here. I don't mind changing them, and it won't change the cost of the sign.
Yeah,
So
I'm
if
fine
you-
with the cost of the sign, but I would like Liz's input and a little more discussion on what the park rules sign, and of course, correct the error in the one Churchill sign. But, my other question for you, Liz, was no alcohol or controlled substances, and we have a picture of a cannabis leaf, which now in Maryland is legal. I mean, I'm sure we can tell people they can't smoke or vape in our parks, but I don't know about if they just have it on them. I hope we could. I would like to, but.
I think we dealt with this in the cannabis regulations where basically we're saying if you are on our property, the use of cannabis is banned because you were permitted to do that under the state law if you wanted to. Now, if it's you don't want the cannabis plant on the sign as, promoting something or, just not going down that road, obviously it can be removed.
I would be happy to have it on the sign. I'm
Okay.
asking you if we can have it on the sign.
I think you can because I
Okay.
think the prohibition of the cannabis sign was to advertising This isn't necessarily advertising. This is saying, no, you can't do this here kind of thing.
Okay.
But we can definitely look at the rules and see how, and I can look some more at the code. I mean, because I'm looking at it from the perspective of under your Parks and Recs code. I don't see a spot, which is a little odd, I'm not gonna lie, where it basically usually at the beginning, it's like the town commissioners have the power to pass such rules and regulations as it deems fit. It doesn't say that. It just kind of says, you know, this is how we're going to manage our properties, and you can do this, you can't have firearms, you can't do this. So it might be the appropriate way is to introduce legislation that would add additional criteria that Kevin's been using all these years, or modifying those rules. So also because under 33418, it provides for violations and penalties.
Yes.
So you've got a civil citation, or a municipal infraction that could be issued by either Kevin Small or Chuck Moore if there's a violation going on there. Not to mention, you know, if there was some other criminal acts Chuck could act. So if you're going to have violations and penalties that are going to be enforceable as to individuals who are conducting themselves in violation of these rules, those rules need to be in the code. So
Right.
they can cite it and say, this is what they did.
Yeah, and to add on to that, I think that just the broader point about there should be some sort of public record of a public process about, you know, this is how we came to the conclusion that these are the things that we're not going to allow, is just important for any member of the public who wants to say, well, I disagree with this. Well, you can take a look at the public discussion and
Certainly.
your elected commissioners had this to say. I think that that's important as well. And if it turns out that, and again, I would yield to any further research on this, if it turns out that we don't have that, I would definitely be in favor of introducing some legislation to get that on the books.
Okay, all right. And Kevin and I can work on that.
All right then.
So,
So,
So
we're
where does that
moving
leave
ahead.
us?
well, we are going to vote on the money,
I don't think that there's anything I've heard tonight that changes
the money,
the
the
cost
cost,
of the signs.
and we
Cost,
will have further discussion
Yeah, we'll
on the
just update
on the
those.
language on the park rules
Right.
and correct the
okay.
one misspelling.
So the
And we're
park
having-
rules are a separate piece, it's not a like Shamrock Park on the front, park rules on the back?
Yes, it is. Some of those are park rules on the back.
So is that going to delay getting the park sign up?
Yeah, it depends on how fast we move, because it's going to take some time for them to fabricate these signs. I would say, we could work together on
Yeah,
coming
we can
up
get
with
it done pretty
something
quick.
and then get back to you next week.
Yeah, and I
Yeah, but-
really think that probably all these rules are already somewhere in our code and apply everywhere in town, except for that one with children under 12 have to be accompanied by an adult.
So is it, I mean, I know this is kind of, we'll have more discussions, but just to get a ideas for drafting purposes to save some time, I know you were against the 12 years. Is there a consensus from the board as to what that age, if any, it should be? Or should we just get rid of that
I
entirely?
would get rid of it. I didn't see it in any other locations, the county.
As far as it's
that I've seen
an
any,
age?
like, an age that, I mean, you've got plenty of stuff on the books about like destruction of property and fires and all that kind of stuff. So there are plenty, if somebody's a troublemaker and you want them out of the park, there are plenty, they will have violated a rule.
Sure. Yeah,
elsewhere,
yeah, yeah.
Other than
Besides
just
their
being
age.
Yeah.
11.
And I presume that if someone just lets their 2-year-old roam around the park alone, they have more to worry about than violating the park rules.
You got
They do.
an absolute point there.
Right, so, maybe we don't need to enumerate this specific thing because it's either covered on the you've got an 11-year-old making trouble, or if you've got a baby who's just sitting on the swing set, that's already taken care of because that's, any number of other issues.
Okay.
Good point.
Madam Chair, I would like to move to amend the motion to say, subject to subsequent determination of the appropriate rules to be printed on the signs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with that, but my question is the timeline now on,
We need a second on that, Steve.
is that,
We need a second on that.
okay. before we discuss it.
Madam Chair, don't we need a second on that before we discuss the motion to amend?
We're giving Commissioner Taylor a second to
Okay.
review the current motion.
Okay.
All right. So we need a second on that motion.
I'll second it for discussion purposes. Commissioner Rutledge, could you provide a little bit more?
Yeah, the motion, just the language of it is to replace, the proposal for them to replace the park identification signs and rehabilitate identification direction signs. I just wanted to make it clear that our approval of that proposal was subject to our further approval of what rules would be printed on any of those signs.
So my thought is because we're not, okay, I see what you're saying. Because, so what you're saying is that the approval wouldn't go into effect until we agreed on park rules?
It would give Kevin the authority to say, okay, good, the price is good.
Uh-huh.
We've just got a little bit of a delay on printing those rules, and that gives them that latitude on providing the rule language to print on the sign and sign off on the proof. That's what I'm trying to achieve.
How about we approve it tonight and just take out the children under 12 must be accompanied by an adult? Is anybody really like wedded to that and wants to see that in there on the board?
No, I don't want to see it.
So I'm not sure
But
that
do we want to
that's-
do we want to replace it with something? Because just even for the looks. Because now you're going to have 4 rules on one side, 3 on the other.
Yeah, I'd let the artist handle that.
You know,
Myself, I'm substantively, it would be appropriate if I then withdrew my motion?
Mhm.
I would like to withdraw my motion.
Okay. Yes, no, that's appropriate. Yeah, I tend to think that what we're dealing with here, we've got the power of the purse, and I see no reason to, encumber that. I trust Mr. Small to go forth and.
I could come back to the commissioners with a replacement or a redesign of those park rules.
Mhm. Yeah.
On
But the quick-
layout?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just out of an abundance of caution, that was what my motion was, but, I mean, the motions clearly
Right.
could be read as a economic motion only, not an approval of the drawings, so I'm fine with that.
All right.
Good.
So we are then going to vote on this contract?
Couple more questions.
Okay, absolutely.
Mr. Small, on page, I guess it would be 7, the Shamrock Park sign. That has no pets allowed, so you have different park rules for the Shamrock Park versus
Yes.
the other ones?
It's, again, I'm operating under rules that I didn't make them up. They're the ones I inherited. The Shamrock Park doesn't allow pets, even though there's pets all over the place. And the reason is because probably
band
many years
show.
ago, people sat down to watch the symphony, Chesapeake Symphony,
Right.
and sat in the wrong place, and that got back to the commissioners, and they decided to add that
Okay.
restriction. Lots of kids, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and then, so some of the park rule signs will, like Shamrock Park, it'll be on the back of the sign?
Yes, whenever we have signs that are close proximity to the park where it's easy for people to just take a look,
Right.
we just put them to the back of the sign, try to save money.
Okay.
But there are some places where, especially at Rockfield, the park sign is right at the entrance off of the John Carroll Drive. Well, no one's gonna walk up there, so it's gonna be a separate park rule sign located in an appropriate location.
Okay.
So there's no pets allowed in Shamrock Park, right?
But
No
pet-
pets
We're
allowed.
gonna have to put that in there.
No, it's already in there.
It's already in the design. That's why I noticed there was a
No, it's-
difference.
If we're going to put rules on the books, it needs to be in the code. That's what I'm saying. Because where else, the rules are gonna say pets are allowed, but you gotta clean up after your pets. The code we're talking about in our revision.
Okay.
But if Shamrock Park, you guys want to exempt pets, you have to say that in the code. Because then if somebody's out there running with a dog, and
Right.
Chuck goes, hey, you can get this dog out of there, and he cites him, it's gotta be in the code. Does that make sense?
No, I got you. I got
Okay.
you.
For the
So if
most
we're gonna
part,
need to
these
put
rules-
these in the code, that's
Yeah.
gonna take us 2 months to be effective. We gonna do the contract by then? It was a timeline issue.
That's
You know what I mean?
purely up to you. We can find the places where these things are located and amend those relatively quick.
Yeah, it won't take
Right.
long.
Well, I mean, usually, but the ordinance takes, 28 days after we vote, right?
I know, but it has to
You
be
know.
in the code because there's violations too.
And that's all I'm saying, is
Yeah.
our timeline's gonna be okay for us to do.
As long as you're all in an agreement, I think we
There
can
you go.
proceed with the fabrication, and then
Yeah.
the legislation can catch up.
Okay.
We don't think we'll get a petition forever.
Okay. Hope not. And then the other question was on the gateway signs, the mall gateway?
Those aren't included in the contracts in front of
Okay,
you.
then never
Those
mind.
are separate.
Okay, but just for, it didn't have two. It has welcome Bel Air, no welcome to Bel Air. All the other signs said two. Just a typo, an oversight, whatever.
I didn't see that in
I
the
didn't, did I provide that to you?
No, that wasn't in my package.
You sent them to us in that package.
That may have been under a separate package. That was probably earlier in the process.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're talking about.
Just didn't say two.
Can I keep this?
Yes. That's all I had.
Right. Anybody else have any questions? All right, and there are no members of the public here to comment, so it's my understanding we're going to vote on this contract because of the money, and we're going to work on the language. Correct. Okay. Mr. Krantz?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is to vote on the award of the contract for the wayfinding signs in the amount of $32,795.95. Commissioner Rutledge,
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
Commissioner Chance,
Aye.
and Chair Edding.
Aye.
The contract is approved.
Thank you, Mr. Krantz. Next, reappointment to the Historic Preservation Commission. Do I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair, if I may, I move that the reappointment of Paul Edmeades to the Bel Air Historic Preservation Commission for a term of 3 years, effective immediately, be approved by the Bel Air Board Town of Commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Rutledge. Do I have a second?
I second that motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Chance. Any discussion amongst the board? Mr. Rutledge, did you want to say anything about?
Yes, Madam Chair, I am the liaison to the Bel Air Historic Preservation Commission. I've been able to get to know Mr. Edmeades and see him in action, and he's an integral part of the commission, their deliberations, his expertise, not only as an architect, but also the way that he's able to help facilitate conversation with the other members of the commission, I think is invaluable. And I encouraged, I was glad to, I reached out to Mr. Edmeades. I was glad to see that he is willing to continue to serve in this capacity, and I wholeheartedly support his reappointment.
Thank you, Commissioner Rutledge. Any other discussion amongst the board? There are no members of the public here, so Mr. Krantz, we're ready for a vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the reappointment of Paul Edmeades to the Historic Preservation Commission. Pardon me, Commissioner Rutledge,
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
Commissioner Chance,
Aye.
and Chair Edding.
Aye.
Mr. Edmeades is reappointed.
Next is public announcements. The Bel Air's Farmers Market continues in June with visits by area brewers, winemakers, live music, and activities for children planned for the month, in addition to your favorite vendors. The market is open Saturdays from 8 a.m. until noon in the parking lot at Bond and Thomas Streets. Visit the Bel Air Farmers Market on social media or their website for the latest updates. First Fridays, hosted by the Bel Air Downtown Alliance, returns this Friday, June the 7th. The monthly festivities run from 5 until 8 p.m. in the parking lot next to Das Beer Hall at Main Street and Churchville Road. Come out and enjoy live music, artisan vendors, food trucks, activities for kids, and beer and wine. And while you're celebrating, you're more than welcome to explore downtown and visit our shops and restaurants. The Bel Air Market, another initiative of the Downtown Alliance, returns to downtown on Sunday, June the 9th. The Parisian-style open-air market featuring antique and artisan vendors is open from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. in the lot next to Das Beer Hall. Maryland Community Band Day, featuring community bands from around the state, is happening Sunday, June the 9th from 1 to 8 p.m. in Shamrock Park. The day will be capped off with a concert by the event host, our own Bel Air Community Band, at 7 p.m. Admission is free. Please visit the Bel Air Community Band page on Facebook or their website for more details. Speaking of concerts, the Town of Bel Air Summer Concert Series in Shamrock Park kicked off this past Sunday, June the 2nd, and continues with a show each week through August the 18th. Concerts on Sundays, with the exception of the Susquehanna Symphony Orchestra show on Saturday, June the 15th, and they run from 7 to 8:15 p.m. all in Shamrock Park. Admission is free, and you can call 410-803-9784 after 4 p.m. the day of the show for updates in case of inclement weather. Visit the Town of Bel Air government page on Facebook or our town website for a full schedule. The Appearance and Beautification Committee will meet at 7 p.m. on Monday, June 10th here in Town Hall. The Board of Town Commissioners will hold a work session at 5:15 on Tuesday, June the 11th at Town Hall. The Tree Committee will meet at 4:30 p.m. on Wednesday, June the 12th at the Bel Air Planning Department at 705 East Churchville Road. The Economic and Community Development Commission will meet at 5 p.m. on Thursday, June the 13th in the Bel Air Armory. All meetings of town boards, committees, and commissions are open to the public. Did I miss anything? All right then. Public comments, but we have no members of the public. Commissioners' comments.
Madam Chair, if I may, I want to just thank the staff for all their hard work coming up through this meeting this evening, everybody's participation in it. Certainly, it was a long meeting this evening, but in reflection, I can't think of anything that I'd want to cut out of it, particularly the time that was spent in the recognitions at the beginning of this meeting. And I wanted to take a moment just to personally thank Eddie Hopkins for sending out information to us as commissioners as things were transpiring in the mall situation a little bit, just to let us know that, you know, something was happening there, and then just appreciate that communication from administration. I have the utmost faith in you all in emergency situations. I am humbled to actually receive some communication myself, because I do, you know, sleep well at night knowing we've got a fantastic team here put together in Bel Air. But I thank you for the courtesy, sir, very much. Yeah.
I wanted to provide, I wanted to extend a congratulations to the 2024 class of Bobcats that graduated from Bel Air High School. And a particular congratulations to our very own town administrator's stepdaughter, who graduated this past week. Every time I attend a high school graduation, I am just reminded of the bright future that Harford County has, and how much work we as elected officials and government officials have to do to make sure that our youth choose to stay here, because they are our future. And I say this, you know, without the least bit of personal bias. Without them, we don't have a Harford County to look forward to in the next 50 years. And so I'm incredibly excited to see what that particular group of graduates will do, and seeing how we can support them in any way possible.
I'll be less nervous when she comes home on Thursday from the ocean. A lot
Yes.
less nervous than
I share your emotions there, yeah. One thing I wanted to say, that I know we talked about the incident at the Harford Mall and all the supporting agencies, but also want to extend our thanks and gratitude to Harford County EMS. I did not thank them, but they were a big part of that, and also to the Bel Air Volunteer Fire Company, who also provided services out there that day. So there was a whole, again, it's a whole community effort, community services, everybody works well together, and we, you know, in a bad situation, we made good.
I'm glad you picked that up, sir, because I thought about it afterwards. It was an afterthought, but in the press releases, we did make sure to mention DES anyway. But Bel Air Volunteer Fire Company, they were just as integral and as part of the team being there, and they had rescue task force personnel from ambulances and stuff. So they were a big part of the operation too. It takes a team, and everybody worked in unison. It was pretty seamless, actually. Little bumps, little hiccups here and there, but you're going to have that with something like that. It's basically organized chaos, and everybody came together, and we got through it. So, yes.
Anything else? In that case, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.